All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with episode 56. No cameraman again. Had to let Joe do it. It's a low budget thing right now, but we're getting there. How you doing?
I'm good. And welcome back to episode 56 of Backhouse Productions. We don't have a guest, and I don't think we ever will, but let's just jump into what's been on my mind lately, which is the situation going on in San Francisco with Gavin Newsom. Joe Biden was there, and the guest of honor being Xi Jinping.
President Xi comes to town, and they roll out the red carpet. I mean...
Did you see his message talking about...
I didn't.
About being friends with America, not being enemies with America.
No, I didn't see it.
Dude, you gotta, this is where there's like the different layering. It's the messaging. So they say something at face value, people take it in, it's like, oh, okay, whatever. But he means like three different things. Like he's insinuating different things. Like think about this. We're talking about there's a potential war with Taiwan. And yet this dude's coming to San Francisco talking about how we need to be friends with the US. What does that mean? Well, what I jumped to was they can't go to war with the US because they rely too much on the US. That's what I'm getting from. Like, they're not ready to go to war with a superpower like us.
Oh, yeah. Their country would... First of all, they don't even have enough food to take care of their population.
They import so many goods. They're so energy and food reliant.
And not even just from America, from all America's allies, too.
Yeah.
Like, they can't just rely on Russia.
No, they can't because it's too treacherous. It's like a 2,000-mile, like, expedition to get from Russian oil inland China where the main cities are, like Shanghai.
Yeah, they're not even, dude, that's a thing in the news. They're not even thinking of doing that shit yet.
I think they're strategically planning it. Like they're looking, like these guys, like it's like Elon Musk, it's like Mark Zuckerberg. These guys are planning 20 years in the future.
You know what's crazy is I feel like if they were going to do it, they should do it now while his best friend Biden's in office.
Just they can't.
Dude, think of this, how Russia attacks Ukraine and Biden gives all this money to Ukraine. I bet you if China attacked Taiwan, not even 2% of that money is going to Taiwan. That goes to Ukraine.
Well, the problem with China is like, yet again, they're so energy and food reliant. It's like with the Trump administration, when they put tariffs on China, it really hurt their economy. And then COVID happened on top of that, and they're over-crediting everything. It's like they don't have enough assets in place, and they don't have enough raw materials to supply their entire country. So the second we cut them off with importing like oil to them, and we're done importing raw materials to China, 1 million people are going to starve within a month. Like they're in such a precarious spot where they can't really do anything. They're like walking through eggshells to the point where they're eventually trying to be self-sustaining, self-independent from the U.S. But at this point they're not ready yet. And that's why you hear the whole BRIC nation stuff where there's alliances, right? They're building new alliances. It's not though. It's not.
India's in it, and India and China are not good friends.
I know that, but they can be like, are we friends with Saudi Arabia all the way? Like we give money to Iran. Like we're friends with them. Like it's just friendly. We're not friends. It's all friendly, not friends.
It's a lot worse between India and China though.
For sure. But well, that's the problem too with like foreign diplomacy. It's like, or our foreign policy. Sorry, it's like, do we want to keep pushing Russia into bed with China? That's the issue. It's like because once those guys join up together,
it's inevitable.
They're bigger than us. And it's definitely a threat.
Who's us though? Just America?
United States.
What about U.S. and NATO?
The allies. Yes, it's a big threat. The whole point
we would squash them.
The whole point of foreign policy in the United States ever since World War II has been restricting other nations from aligning together without the U.S. interests involved. So
basically
that's why we
communist. Yeah.
Yes, so you're trying to contain communism. You're trying to like keep these countries that are close to each other from like being friends and excluding everyone out of it, right? And so that's been our foreign policy this entire time. But now with the Ukraine situation, with what happened in the Middle East for the last 20 years, we're showing instability. And so that's the problem with our security issue. And I think it's important that Xi Jinping came to the United States because it's like we're still friends with him in a way. Like we're still keeping tabs on each other. But that stuff so far into the future, like China's not ready to go to war with us. They're not. And and like Brazil being involved with those BRIC nations. So let me just lay out all the countries that are in the BRIC nation so far. So the B stands for Brazil, the R stands for Russia, the I stands for India, the C stands for China, the K stands for what is that, Kazakhstan or something, and then like the S.
I don't even think there's a K. I think it's just BRICS.
Yeah, there's no K.
Yeah.
And then the S stands for Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like Saudi Arabia, that's why I think the BRIC thing's shit. Is because India and China aren't really friendly at all. Saudi Arabia is much more friendly with us than they are with China.
You got to think though, China is investing money into Africa, into the Middle East, and when
heavily into Africa,
they're involved in the same spots that we are. Like when we pulled our troops out of Afghanistan last year,
they would come right in.
There's a Chinese military base 100 miles away from where we deployed our troops, or we took our troops. So they're involved. Like they're trying to get like their hands on all the economies in the world, and they're trying to have some sphere of influence. And that's the problem. And it's like once American security or once the dollar is not as trustworthy, it's like there has to be a superpower. And so now they're aligning together. They're aligning their interests to go against U.S. supremacy.
I think
it's definitely an issue.
Well, I think one of China's biggest interests in why they're going in all these African countries and like Afghanistan is because of the natural resources. Like China is probably tapping their country out. They need to start going to other countries and pulling natural resources. Like Afghanistan, I think is huge in copper, and then there's everything's in Africa: gold, cobalt, everything that you need's in Africa, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're really trying to figure out where they're going to start getting their next natural resources for these next couple decades, because they're going to realize it's going to have to be all imports at this point.
Yeah.
Because China's still big producers in certain natural resources, but it's going to get to the point they just have such a population in such a big country.
They're going to have to pivot for sure, because like what made China grow so fast was the fact that it wasn't really like they're paying their people like pennies to the dollar. And so their labor force was so cheap. But now Mexico is more skilled and they're less expensive than China at this point. So China has to pivot and like go towards a different direction, which is like being the head of an alliance. And that's a problem. That's a big issue for the United States. And so having him there is good. But segueing to like people being there, like the Blackrock people, Tim Cook was there of Apple, like all the big guys, all the big run gunners are there at this, like whatever they're talking about at this meeting. But what makes me feel a little different is like, how are they able just to clean the streets so fast?
I was gonna say, where did all those homeless people go?
Where did they put them?
Where did they go?
Like, did you think they just encamped? Like they encamped them somewhere? Like they're just in this facility?
Dude, it's what's so crazy is like, because San Francisco's homeless problem is so bad. Like you've seen like pictures of downtown LA, and it's literally just like tents everywhere.
Yeah,
and it's just disgusting. It's just like that in San Francisco, if not worse. And it's like they can clean all that up in the snap of a finger.
In a day.
They just let it happen. They just let it happen, but they just showed how easily it is to clean it all up. But they won't do it for the American people, but they'll do it for President Xi when he comes to town.
It's all about appearances. Like we're
flying Chinese flags. There's not an American flag inside. You think you're in China.
Yeah.
Like you think Xi Jinping's driving through China, coming into some town that he's never at to do some conference.
Now I wonder where that picture was taking place. I wonder if that was in Chinatown.
No, dude, it looked like it was downtown San Francisco.
Yeah.
Like it just looked like like big buildings around.
Mm-hmm.
It was it's crazy to see that, dude. And a bunch of like Instagram accounts that I follow were all posting it, like saying you'd think this is China, but this is in America right now, and all this shit.
Yeah. No. Yeah. They're rolling the red carpet for this dictator. A guy. I mean, you got to give respect to China. They are the second biggest GDP. They're the second biggest power and the biggest threat to American supremacy. So I don't know. Like, I think you got to be friendly with them in a weird way, but they know also how bad we can hurt them, and we can hurt them more than they can hurt us at this moment.
It's just got to stay the way it's been we haven't ever really had a crazy issue with China, like a real war with them.
Well, Korea
in the 50s.
Yeah.
okay, well, after that, so say for the last 70 years or 60 years.
There was definitely some influence in Vietnam where they were trying to keep it. Yeah.
Trying to turn it. Yeah, they were obviously the influence trying to make it communist. But I'm just saying, like, okay, just for our lifetimes in the last 20 years, everything you see is made in China, in America.
Cheap labor.
Yeah, we outsource everything to them. Like, all these huge companies still outsource to them. And they make a ton of money that way, and we make a ton of money that way, and we know it's a good relationship. It's just it's starting to get to the point with China now that's what 20 years ago they weren't in Africa like they are now. Yeah. 20 years ago they weren't in Afghanistan like they are now.
Yeah, like, it's the building
now
blocks.
Now they're starting to come into places where we probably already are trying to take natural resources, and then that's when shit goes bad. Yeah. Like when we're starting to have to fight over natural resources with China, that's when a war starts. I don't even think Taiwan is basically the same thing, because I know chips aren't a natural resource, but you could kind of think of them that way. Like, because it's Taiwan's chip manufacturing is such a big deal to us. Yeah. And if they threaten that, that's just the same as them threatening our oil or something that we're getting from somewhere.
Yeah, and they don't produce any oil in China either, so they're always importing everything. Like
that's a big reason they want to go to Taiwan too, is because a lot of the oil is in the ocean. Like, and that's like, I forget what the treaty's called, but there's all these like demarcation lines all around, like the Philippines and Taiwan, and I guess like the International Ocean Treaty or whatever for that the
South China Sea.
Yeah, in the South China Sea, but the United Nations like drew up. Yeah. It's crazy. Like, China is just making man-made islands to say that, like, they have more, because every island you have you get like 80 miles off of your coast or something like that. So every island they make 80 miles off, then they get an 80-mile circle around that or something close to that. And they're basically, that's why they want Taiwan, so they can get another 80 miles. Because Taiwan and China are, like, really close together.
Yeah, it used to be a part of China.
Yeah, like, super close. And I don't even think it's they split basically through the middle, and they want all that oil, too. Like, they're trying to take all the oil from the South China Sea. Like, Malaysia and Philippines have taken China to, like, the world courts for shit like this. And it's just becoming a problem.
But they got to consider, too, another fact. It's like the reason they can't also just go to Taiwan today is like Japan. Japan is also a big power, right? They have the second largest navy, third or second, maybe to the UK. But, I mean, they got to deal with Japan and their allies with us. So they have a lot of enemies in that region. So that's why it's very dangerous when you hear about them trying to align with different countries.
I feel like we're closer with Japan than ever before now.
Yeah. No, we have been. Yeah. We have been. We're definitely supporting Japan, too, and we also have South Korea. But, it's definitely a treacherous time to think about it, but I don't think China's ready for it. And that's why I think he's saying this is why there's different layering to every message that these, like, world power people say is, like, we want to be friends with the U.S., because we have to be friends with the U.S. And until that switches, then their whole like mindset towards us won't be as friendly. And so them aligning with other superpowers, like other countries around them, extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think we're going to become more independent with chip factoring, manufacturing, like in Arizona, Texas. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's interesting how they just appear to look so good. Like San Francisco looks so good. It's always looked like this, but yet it's been a disaster over the last 4 years with the way that the homeless problem. And I mean, just the beautiful architecture they build in San Francisco, it just looks horrible. It looks so bad.
It smells like shit there.
You know what? It's nice though. It's nice to see that we can do it, but then it's also it's gonna be interesting.
Go right back.
It's going to be interesting when the homeless people start coming back right after he leaves. They're going to come
right back after he leaves. Yeah.
Like I bet.
I can't wait to see the pictures.
The people should be so mad. It's like if I'm going to pay so much tax dollars to like for like public utilities and like making my area look better, like my community, those dollars aren't going to the right spots. It's not allocated correctly, and they can easily fix a city so fast, and yet they haven't so long until like a supreme leader like that comes into San Francisco. It's very alarming.
If we got into the homeless problem and how to fix the homeless problem, we could be here for 3 hours talking about that.
Well, let's lay out a reason. How can you fix homelessness in San Francisco permanently?
I saw something, not even just San Francisco. I saw something that said, I don't know the exact number, but how much money have we sent to Ukraine? Like over 150 billion.
I don't know. 150 billion?
I think it's like 160.
Yeah.
Or something close. It's 150 billion, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw something that said we could have fixed the homeless problem in the United States for, I think, 80 billion or 100 billion or something. Might even be less than that. And it's like, okay, say you do have that 100 billion to fix homelessness. What are you doing to fix homelessness with $100 billion?
Nothing. I saw this one video.
What is there to do? It's in there. That's just how they are. A lot of people just want to be homeless. If you gave them a house, you gave them a job, you gave them everything, they'd still end up homeless in a month.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's nothing you could do with some people like that.
That's true. Like a bunch of those guys guys and girls are just gone already from drugs, right?
Drugs, you can get them all clean. It doesn't matter.
They'll
They're not going
die.
to stay clean.
Yeah, they'll just die if they don't, or they'll kill themselves. Or it's just it's a sticky situation, and it's been an epidemic that's been going on for the last 40 years.
You can't fix it. You just have to. I think you have to allocate the money to start figuring out ways to prevent it for the next generations.
But look at the actions. Look how they're allocating that money. What does that tell you? It means our security around the world and how we look is more important than the people domestically living in the United States.
Which is so ridiculous.
Like, at the end of the day, we're consumers, dude. Like, that's all they see us as. And then having a sphere of influence around the globe is way more important for, like, a power struggle and having supremacy over the globe. And that's why Michigan, that's why that's why all, like, the auto industry left. It's like they just let these cities erode.
It's amazing to me how California still has practically the same government that they've had for the last however long, and it's nothing's changing. It's only getting worse, and nobody cares to vote in new people that could possibly make a change.
And it's also weird with Newsom. We haven't talked about Gavin Newsom that much. He's running the state of California. He's the governor, but it's almost like he's getting ready to run. It's like it's so obvious that he's going to run in 2024.
He's going to be their guy.
That's the guy they're running with. Why is he debating DeSantis? Why is he meeting with the dictator China? Why is he making these trips around the country? It's like he's getting ready. He's getting ready.
Who else do they have?
No one until Biden steps down. So
nobody's going to reelect Biden.
Well, yeah, it'll be interesting with the Kennedy situation, but yeah.
Dude, nobody's reelecting Biden, but if Newsom comes in, they know like he could be their horse, that he could get elected.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like,
which will be such an issue.
I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it right now it's like, remember when Trump was like, we need to be friends with Russia, and everyone was like, what the hell are you talking about? Why would we be friends with a dictator like Putin? It's like, maybe we do need to be friends with these people.
You need to be friendly.
We need to be friendly, right? Yeah. We don't have to be like, I'm not talking about anything like letting them have things, but like I think once they go against American interests, that's when I think we should start punishing them, right? Because we can, and you don't want them. I love the Trump tariffs on them. Like, you can't let China just get away with these things. You can't just let them run wild, right? They're having concentration camps in their countries. It goes against all the UN policies of like humanitarianism. Like, they're going against what the world standards are to like running a country. They definitely should have some pushback. They should not be able to just do whatever they want.
I think
internationally.
I think like how China and Russia are like starting to ally with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's still a big deal to America.
Yeah.
But it's not as big a deal because you kind of expect it from two communist countries. They're basically the only two communist countries next to North Korea, and probably I don't even know what other country is a communist.
Yeah, I mean,
country.
yeah.
Like, you kind of expect them to be friendly with each other and ally, but if China were to start forming a relationship like they have with Russia with a country like India or a country like Germany,
mm-hmm.
it would be a huge deal. It would be a way bigger deal than it is.
No, it's the whole system has been like, it's all in a scramble because of how much money's been made over the last 80 years, where the U.S. has been helping. They've been assisting that the entire way. That's allowed all these countries to get all rich. But now it's time to change the policy. It's like, hey, like the EU countries, you need to step up more with defending Ukraine or whatever we're doing. Like being like a member of NATO, you have to contribute, right? None of these countries are contributing as much, right? Like Germany's doing business with Russia still, while we're having a full-on like proxy war with them. And it's crazy. It's crazy. And it's like, you know, how do you keep American security engaged, right? How do you prevent these like conflicts from arising and then people alliancing with each other against the United States or against NATO? It's a big issue. But then again, it's good to see Xi Jinping come to the United States because it just means he still needs us, right? The entire world still needs us, right? They're just trying to take a little bit of the power back, which I think definitely is not a safer world, right? We've been in this. This is the safest the world has ever been for the last 80 years. And once American supremacy kind of declines, the American dollar it declines a little bit. It's not the reserve currency anymore. There's a dollar, or there's a currency that's battling against the American dollar. It's a much, much, much dangerous world. Much more dangerous.
All right, I want to see what you think about this.
Okay.
I was talking kind of to you about it the other day when I listened to Elon Musk talk about what, like, the biggest thing that he learned that came out from COVID, and when he was talking to doctors from Wuhan, was that the biggest thing that these doctors realized was that their treatment of COVID was the biggest issue. And it's not that the COVID virus was leaving all these people with permanent damage, but it was that when somebody would come to the hospital with COVID, they put them on intubated ventilators for extended periods of time, and that's what's leaving these people with lung damage, and it's not COVID. All these people, like especially older people who had COVID and went to the hospital and now have like lung problems, it's not from the COVID. It's from being on an intubated ventilator for an extended period of time.
And it probably killed just as much.
And I think that's so crazy that it probably still is the course of treatment. Like if in America somebody were to have COVID and come to the hospital, they'd get put on an intubated ventilator, and then they'd come out of the hospital a week later with lung problems for the rest of their life. Yeah. Which is, I think, is crazy that it's like not being talked about more. No, because it makes so much sense. Like that makes so much sense because I know so many people who've had COVID. My sister, my mom. I didn't have it, thank God, but like I know so many people who had it and got over it in a couple days and didn't go to the hospital because they didn't freak out. Even my grandpa had it. Like so many people had it and didn't go to the hospital. But it just seems like the people who went to the hospital, it like seems like there's a real correlation with people who went to the hospital and the people who have lung problems and permanent issues from COVID.
And I bet those people who died from that, they were probably marked as dying from COVID too. Yeah. So that added to the numbers.
Yeah, and it probably had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
COVID, because COVID viruses are like, they're common viruses. It's just different strains of them. And like the SARS virus is a COVID virus, and that's more deadly than COVID-19 was. Yeah. And I just think it's crazy how people just got so brainwashed over COVID. Mm-hmm. And
how fast we divided from COVID.
Dude, how fast we divided, how brainwashed people got, how you have to stay inside. It's crazy, and it's still having effects on our country today.
You know, it's a problem because like, okay, so there's two sides of that issue with COVID. It's like both sides think that they're the good guys and they think the other side is bad because there's like, it's propaganda in a way where you're framing one side to look really good. It's like the same issue what's going on with Palestine and Israel. It's like there's one side, and this is like the problem with social media because you're just getting like, you're in this echo chamber of just getting the same information over and over, just reaffirming your beliefs, where it's making you seem like, okay, I'm the good person who's wearing my mask all the time. I'm the good person that's getting my vaccines. But then on the other side, they're getting this, like they're getting different information saying you're a true American. You don't like, there's a one world government trying to take you over. There's they're taking more control over your everyday life. They're forcing you to do something. They're never going to restrain from their grip of power. And it's like you're framing it in two different ways. And so once these people are hearing this and whatever side they lean towards, that's why it's so divided. And that's why it's like, it's almost like sacrilegious to go against one issue, because half the people are going to be like, you're a terrible person. And then there's no common ground to be made once you already associate the other side as terrible and like worthless and can't work with them. Then you don't really have a country. There's really there's no conversations, and that's why they wanted to suppress speech all this time. It's a real issue, and I think people need to see other people's point of views more, right?
Yeah, well, during 2020 and 2021, there were so many people who got canceled on YouTube. Any person who would talk out about COVID in the way that the establishment didn't want it to be talked about.
And it actually came out to be true, which is...
That's what I was just going to ask you. Are you a guy who thinks it was made in a lab?
No, yeah, for sure. It's a coronavirus lab in Wuhan, China. Yes, for sure. That's where the spread came from.
And do you think it was a cash grab or what?
I think it was an accident. It's hard to say that these like countries, because I guarantee there was a lot of countries involved if that was true. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I do know there's a lot of
I don't think that
there's a lot of corporations like Amazon, Tesla, all these big corporations grab so much more money during COVID, and a bunch of small businesses died out and they got shriveled away.
But I don't even think it's just that. I'm talking about in the aspect of like the deep state and China working together to come up with a plan. Like how much money was made from these vaccines, like Moderna. If you would have invested money, it was like a $20 stock before COVID. And peak COVID, it's a $400 stock.
Yeah.
That's a 20x increase in a year.
Mm-hmm. And the guy who owns the vaccines, Bill Gates, he's going on TED Talks 5 years before the fact, talking about how we're not prepared for
pandemic.
Pandemic.
And it's so crazy to think that like these pharmaceutical companies grew so much in valuation, and nobody's able to ask questions or point fingers because the people who do either just get banned or they're not given a platform, and it's so obvious.
Yeah,
obvious.
You can't suppress speech. There's no that's the worst thing you can do is suppress the speech.
That's a big reason Elon bought X.
Yeah,
or bought Twitter.
Yeah,
and I
thought it was a great move.
What was I just gonna say?
When Elon Musk was firing like 75% of the workforce at Twitter, it came out that they were like feds. Like the people working at Twitter, they were using Twitter, the app, as getting information and like cracking down on who's like doing what.
Yeah, like
right?
to block people and stuff.
Yeah, they're working for the Federal Reserve, or no, not the Federal Reserve, but the FBI.
The deep state.
Yeah, I mean it's all tied. So it's like crony capitalism in a way, where it's like these people, like the government and big corporations are in bed together, which is like, I mean, it's gonna happen. There's always corruptness, but like the manner of which it got accelerated during COVID, it makes you definitely suspicious of what was really going on.
I feel like Trump was pushed into such a corner because it was during an election year. Like if COVID would have happened like 2017, it would have been.
Oh, he probably would have lost.
No, if it happened like after he's president, but
dude, this took we're still in the midst of COVID. Like it's been 3 years.
No, but I'm saying, like the vaccines, like how he was pushed into a corner with all of the American public wanting him to figure out a cure, come out with a vaccine so fast. Like all these media people, like once again, I think the deep state pulls all the strings and is telling all these people to really push it in the media, which then causes the American public to pressure Trump and do this Operation Warp Speed and come out with a vaccine as fast as possible, which is the worst thing that could happen, because now we're seeing all these effects that possibly are coming from the vaccine with all these younger people and having heart problems. And I was so skeptical before it too, or when the vaccine was coming out, because a typical vaccine, first of all, is a dead part of the virus, just like the flu vaccine is a dead part of the flu virus, and all these different vaccines, like the polio vaccine is a dead part of the polio virus.
Yeah.
The COVID vaccine has nothing to do with the COVID virus at all. It's some mRNA thing.
They changed the definition of what constitutes a vaccine.
Yes, that's one of the big reasons I was skeptical. And another reason is once the vaccine is made and ready for human trials, it takes like 4 years for it to get passed and be ready to
if
go
not
out
longer.
to the American public. 4 years minimum.
Yeah,
of
if not
testing.
longer.
Yeah, just so you can see over the 4 years of what it's doing in people's blood and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They can release this thing in a year.
Yeah.
Like, which is so. That's why I never got it.
But I don't think it was released. Like, they've been working on it for a minute, so it's
but not
almost
for
like,
COVID. They were working on it for something else.
yeah.
And they just said, "Oh, this can work for that."
I think, yeah, that's why there's coronavirus labs. They were probably trying to figure out how do you get a deadly virus, and then how do you manufacture a virus, and how do you have an answer that heal from it.
Maybe I've never even thought of this, but maybe like these pharmaceutical companies were working on this vaccine, this other vaccine or whatever the fuck this is, this mRNA thing, and when they were realizing like either we've spent a lot of money in like trying to manufacture and produce this and experiment with this and study this or whatever it is, the mRNA thing, we need to make our money back.
Yeah.
We are so in the hole, and we can make a ton of money if we have a pandemic come out and we just give this to the American public. We can make billions and billions of dollars.
And if it wasn't really about money, how come Bill Gates decided to keep his own patent of the vaccine and didn't just like publicly have it
I didn't even know
accessible? Like he could have made all the vaccines free. He owned the patent, but he decided to keep the patent, so you have to pay for it. Like I was like literally people who got the vaccine, it was like coercion. Like you were getting forced to take it, and I had to pay for it.
Now.
I had to pay to get the vaccine.
Why did you get it? Because you're playing football?
I was playing football, and they literally told the entire team, you have to get this vaccine, or you're going to be like literally like ostracized from the team. Like you're going to be in like a different different training rooms, different locker rooms.
Was there anybody?
Everyone got it.
That's crazy.
Everyone got it. I was the last one to hold out, or like one of the last ones, and I decided to get it because I wanted to be on the team, and I still had to pay for the vaccine.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like that vaccine could have been free.
I don't think my mom got coerced into it too because she works as a flight attendant for United.
Mm-hmm.
And they were basically saying, if you don't get this vaccine, you can't fly. And then a bunch of her workers, my mom, she just was like, whatever, fuck it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But a bunch of people like were trying to get religious exemptions. They weren't taking it. They were just like, you can't work. We don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's starting to come out. Like I think there's lawsuits like with people who were forced into getting it are suing companies because now it's all coming out that it doesn't really do what it said. Like, it doesn't actually prevent you from passing COVID on to somebody. It doesn't help you from not getting COVID. Like, people who got the vaccine got COVID a month and a half later.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Like, and I would be I'm the type of person who, if I was forced into getting it somehow, I would be so pissed off. I would be trying to figure out any way I could get back at whoever forced me into getting it.
It's just, it's a lot of shady activity that went on. It's also when I think like China knew about this in like October of 2019, and they held it till like January of 2020.
Well, yeah, I remember
where they finally got out.
I remember like when I was still in school in 2019, like November, December 2019. I remember hearing, oh, there's this COVID virus in China.
Mm-hmm.
Then I remember like maybe January or February, like, oh, there's the first case of COVID in the USA now.
Yeah.
And then by March, schools are shutting down. Like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's so crazy to me.
And
that's so crazy that, like, the
insane.
American people allowed, like, they got so brainwashed that they allowed schools to be shut down, everything to be shut down.
This is what I
have to quarantine and not go anywhere.
The virus could have been deadly, though. I agree with the original response, but
yes,
I think
the
they got
original response, but not for a year.
like the first 2 weeks. But
yes.
yeah, it took like they literally had a stronghold over everybody for a year and a half. They weren't trying to give it away.
And there's still people who are brainwashed.
And for sure. I see a bunch of people wearing masks in the car by themselves. Like, what are you doing?
It's not even just the
What are you hiding from?
It's just like, even if you don't have a COVID vaccine, some people just look at you like you're terrible, like you want to kill people.
It's a polarizing side. It's like it's a lot. Social media amplifies like your belief system. It only reaffirms it, and so those people are only getting information that's telling them you're doing the right thing. And these people that are not doing
terrible.
What you're doing are literally trying to kill you. Like they're trying to make the world more dangerous. And you know what? It's like we talk about like wokeism. Okay, the idea of wokeism is like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't say offensive things to people that are unnecessary. Like I completely understand that notion, but then it's like that gets in the way of like when Trump first came out and he was talking about the Chinese virus, and they're calling him racist and condemning, like, there's Asian Americans that are getting affected by this. But it's like, we do have to recognize that it did come from a country that held information for 3 months before it even got out. And by then it spread throughout the entire globe. Like, they kept airports open. It's ridiculous. Like, you could have definitely mitigated the risk.
I think
if you were proactive about it.
The deep state knew or had a hand in China releasing the virus, because China they're smart people. Like, they're not stupid, and especially people that are working on diseases, they're the smartest people in the country.
Yeah.
They're not just they probably work on thousands of diseases and thousands of things much deadlier than COVID.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, there's labs that they're working on.
Yeah, and just so happens COVID gets leaked out of their lab. Like, it is not just a coincidence that happened.
Or tell me why the mainstream answer was it came from a pangolin from a wet market.
Yeah. Or like
why was that the most logical explanation of where this came from?
Because
weird.
They think, like, it's weird that people are eating these fucking, like, these wet markets are disgusting, conditions, and people are eating these weird animals, and it could just.
This is where you get sneaky with cultural relativism, because maybe it's normal there, but that still doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? It still can't. Like, where did the pangolin get it from? Maybe the lab that was down the street or in the town.
America definitely knew about, or not all. I don't think all of, but the deep state had their hand in releasing the COVID virus and knew about it, and they knew how they were going to profit off of it and exactly what they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And Trump got so pushed into a corner to basically do everything that they wanted to do.
You know, it's like the people that are like were aware of the situation and like living through COVID, it's like, sure, it affected us. Sure, we printed $6 trillion. Sure, small businesses have less control over the economy now. It's just a bunch of large corporations. It's like a modern day version of fascism. But who's going to get most affected from this are the kids that were born in that 3-year period where you weren't allowed to see people and you weren't allowed to have interactions with people.
That's why I was so glad that I was already out of high school.
Yeah, like we grew up. We
got to live normal.
We experienced normal lives to an extent.
Kids who were in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and didn't go to school for 2 years.
Or the kids in preschool. Like, that's it's an entire generation of kids that are going to be
1st grade when you're learning to read.
Yeah. It's like
Jesus Christ.
It's like you're no longer able to talk to your classmates. You're doing stuff from a Zoom.
Like, it gets normalized for them to be on. Now it's weird to go to school for those kids. Like,
it's a social cost. Yeah. It's a social cost. It's going to be, and then what are those generation of people going to think when they're voting, right? Because voting's still a big thing. So when people have a different idea of like how to, like who to vote, who to elect, there's a different premise of what they believe. Like, they have a different value system now since they've been literally grown up into an environment where security is everything. We always need to be in secure situations. We need help. We need the state to help us, basically. Like, that's what you're kind of brainwashing these kids into believing.
Like, you need the government to wipe your ass.
Exactly. And I don't think it's such a I don't think it's like a one view point of the world with like the hot people power up or higher up, because I think there's always a power struggle at the top. But I don't know. It's definitely interesting when those people that we've mentioned were acting kind of shady, right? I mean, I can't find a better word than shady. It was like behind the scenes. And because of that, we all got affected from it. And that, it is what it is, right? It happened. And so, like, with Xi Jinping also coming to the United States, it's like, are we working with them too? Like, are we all just like, we're all trying to create this one world vision of how the world should be ran and how the world should operate? And it seems like it's definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting where this world's going to go. I know we got deep into the last podcast talking about like social credit score and like people people being able to get tracked at any second of the day. Any any activity you're doing, spending will be viewed to the public. I don't know. I don't know where we go, but I think it's very important to elect. It's very important to vote and at least have some say of it.
Well,
Some say be informed.
I think these 4 years that Biden was in office are probably getting. I don't know how much worse it could get than this for this decade.
Oh, it can get definitely way worse.
I think
It can
it's
get way
such
worse.
a problem that the government is lying so much to the American public and everything is so behind the scenes. I think like 5-6 years from now, there's going to be such a conspiracy about all of this COVID shit. Even though there already is now, but like there's going to be like a legit conspiracy, all this lying to the American public, brainwashing the American public, these tactics they use with them using the media.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be such a big deal.
There's this interview. It was like an old interview, like from the 1980s. It was like this old KGB spy, and they were talking about how do you because Americans, we are safe, like we are secure. Like there's not a lot of countries that are going to come over here and like actually invade us. But what you do is you influence the people living in the country to think a certain way. And so this KGB guy was like kind of laying out like how they did it or how they were trying to do it. And it was like the first stage is demoralization. Think about the 1960s. Think about the sexual revolution, like demoralizing people and numbing them to things that would have not been acceptable 30 years prior. So that kind of takes 15 years to demoralize people. Then you get destabilization. Think about like the oil crisis in the 70s. Think about like the recession in the early 80s. Like there was things happening. Like there's some turmoil getting accumulated and people were becoming more aware of it. Like think about Vietnam. Like people were becoming aware of like, hey, maybe we're not that good at people. Like maybe we're not the agents of freedom. And then it becomes, let's see, what's the third one? There's 4 stages. Oh yeah. And then the third stage is crisis. Think about 9/11. Think about COVID.
Dude, don't even get me started.
And then the last stage, all this takes like 10 years each to get going. So there's a demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and the last stage is normalization. So once you reacted, once you like have a different framework of what you conceive of your reality of American, of the idea of being an American, and that changes, that then gets like, it gets normalized. Then it becomes like common for everyone to kind of think like that, over security, over freedom. And so he kind of laid it out, and it kind of makes sense of like how we've kind of changed as a society. Like people are less informed. People are way more hedonistic. People don't respect institutions anymore. Like American institutions, nobody respects them anymore. And it's like it's crazy how it kind of worked. Like those guys actually fucking did it.
I would not put that past that being like a total CIA operation on the American public to do that over a generation.
But I still think we're the good guys, dude. Like I think we're better than.
I agree that we're the police of the world. Like
I don't know if
we
I'm
still
just
have morals. Like look at in.
We don't though. Like we allow. Like this is the demoralization. Like we just allow everything to be okay, and we just get over it, right? Let people be people.
I'm not saying. I mean that, and when I say that, I mean that we're not still hanging people like they do, like the Taliban does.
Yeah.
Or hang people up and pin them to a post and just use them as a shooting. Shoot them in the, like, there was a Navy SEAL saying he saw one time when he was in Afghanistan, these Taliban guys had 3 guys, like chained up to a post or whatever.
Yeah.
And they would take a pistol, shoot him in the leg and see how it reacts.
Mm-hmm.
Then take a different gun, shoot him in the other leg and see what the difference is. Then take another gun and shoot him in the liver and see what that does. And then just shoot him everywhere. It's just crazy shit. Just like crazy shit.
Sadists.
Like if somebody got caught doing that in America, is like people still realize that person has a fucking problem.
But there's also like Guantanamo Bay, where you you leave like U.S. soil and you go to like Guantanamo and you're able to actually torture these people after 9/11. Like you're able to find people that were maybe working with Bin Laden.
With that.
Yeah, for sure.
The people that
I'm saying we do bad things.
Yeah, like have you seen that movie, The Mauritanian?
No.
It's about this. It's on Netflix. It's a really good movie. Like a lot of people that you know are in it. It's about a guy from Mauritania who got kidnapped by like the CIA or whoever kidnapped him and brought him to Guantanamo Bay, and he had nothing to do with anything about 9/11, and he was just there for years, tortured, and like this lawyer from America goes to help him pro bono, like try to be his lawyer to get him out of there, and realizes he had nothing to do with anything, and he's here just because he's fucking Muslim or whatever, and you just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
And it's the movie's about him like getting out and stuff, and it's a true story. Like, so yeah, I'm against like, but if you're a motherfucker we know who had something to do with bombing 9/11 or killing all those people, they're lucky they're alive.
Yeah.
They're lucky they're alive.
The interesting too though is like
they just still pray to their fucking God.
I like think about like all these corporations. Like think about like why was Tim Cook in San Francisco talking to Xi Jinping? Why was Larry Fink from Blackrock? Why were all these like State Street, Vanguard? They were all there. They were all there. Like this is weird. This is where it gets weird. There's corporations that are in every country in the world. So are those corporations? Technically, they were started in America, but are they really like in America's interest? No, they're only trying to profit.
Yeah.
How do you make the most amount of profit? And that might go against American interest. And so those guys technically they're not even like led through an American like scope. Well, it's like internationally, how do they maximize?
Tim Cook produces so much Apple's like iPhone, like the building blocks of an iPhone, like materials that go into an iPhone are so heavily produced in China.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I think on the back of an iPhone it says made in China.
Like everyone has to work together is pretty much what it's happening.
Like a guy like Larry Fink or Vanguard or State Street, those companies are worth $10 trillion, $8 trillion. Like
those are the real countries.
That's not all in America.
Yeah, no.
These guys own shit all over the world.
I think their main building is like based in like Sweden, or like they're definitely across the pond. Like
probably, but like a guy like Larry Fink, I mean, he's literally BlackRock is into every single type of.
I mean, you know what ESG is?
Yeah, what's it stand for?
Environmentally friendly, socially like.
It's like your score. Like so now these companies have scores. Like if they're being more. Yeah, I saw that.
It's like environmentally, socially governance score.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like they have so much equity in all these different companies. They're able to like make their own value system.
If you look like these guys are. If you look at war companies like Lockheed Martin and Boeing and Raytheon, all their top owners. If you look at every single one of them, Vanguard, State Street, BlackRock,
they have shares.
They're the top owners of every. And if you go look at all these major companies, like Fortune 500 companies, the people who are the top shareholders, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, every single time. So, like, I watched this PBD thing that he gets really into, like BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard and all these companies that are for war, like profit off wars, like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, that make these tanks and make fucking fighter jets and shit. And they have their hands in every type of industry is what I was trying to say. And then it gets to like, why is their ESG score so high if they're invested in these war companies that are profit off wars?
Yeah.
Like, how's your ESG score so high?
Because they comply the main points of like what you're supposed to say, how you're supposed to conduct yourself, and they're controlled by a company that has maybe a third of the world like money system, like the money circulated in the world. They own maybe like a third of it. Like they have a third of it.
$10 trillion under.
Dude, they have like $50 trillion in assets.
No, I think BlackRock's like 10 trillion.
Can we look this up? I'm curious because I know BlackRock has a big. It might be 30.
BlackRock's the biggest. No, I think it's like 10.
If it's 10, okay, but I think it's
like 10 trillion under management.
Maybe there's like $300 trillion that are like actual money in the world. There's $300 trillion in the world, and so these top three funds are close to a third of it. I bet.
Yeah, managed over 10 trillion in assets under management. 40% of the GDP of the United States.
Crazy. Yeah, that's a king. That's an emperor.
I think companies though, like Lockheed Martin, are so. I mean, even though they're profit off wars, I think what they're doing though is like they do some really cool shit. Like I saw this one guy talking about like, okay, yeah, you guys think like alien technology is cool. He's like, I saw one of these helicopters like built by Lockheed Martin or whatever, where the fucking pilot literally, wherever he looks, the gun moves, and so he can literally just look and kill.
Yeah.
Like literally just, if he's flying his helicopter, he doesn't have to move a button to shoot, like move the gun. It's literally has it into his helmet he wears, and he literally just looks and it shoots. Like,
Yeah.
So you just literally look and kill.
Well, you spend $800 billion a year on the military budget. It's like you're gonna have some cool shit.
Some really cool
Like
shit.
you're gonna have some really advanced stuff. What is this? Who is this? Go the other way.
Who is it?
I don't know. I don't know. Just don't fucking open the garage.
No, but that's I when I saw that and I saw the video of it, it was like really cool shit. Like it's literally the helicopter pilot just looking and the gun below's moving.
Yeah,
Like they make cool shit.
It's yeah. You know what? We live
Like
in a way
amazing
more
shit.
complex world, guys. You know, it's not the Napoleon movie that's coming out on the 22nd. How things operate. I'm very excited for, by the way, very excited for it. But you know what? Guys, you got to vote. You got to stay informed. You got to be engaged with what's going on within the world. You got to really like break down what these like world leaders really mean with what's going on, because there's different layering to it. It's not just face value. And you know what?
Nothing's at face value anymore.
Yeah. Oh wait, how are we doing on time here?
50 minutes.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna open the garage. Just keep going. Talk
right.
talk about like the farm, like Bill Gates owning all the farmland.
All right. So I was actually looking into this earlier today. I thought Bill Gates owned a lot more farmland than he actually does. He only owns about 230,000 acres, and people make it seem like Bill Gates owns, because I looked it up, and there's about 800 million acres of farmland in the United States, and people made it seem like Bill Gates owns 10% of that, 20% of that. He owns not even 1%. And I was just telling him how there's 800 million acres of farmland in this country, and people made it seem like Bill Gates owns a couple percents of that.
Yeah.
Guy only owns 200,000 acres, which is still a lot, but it's like, okay, like I'll put it this way.
He's the largest
If you
farm
think
owner.
if you think of how many table grapes are grown in California in acres, it's like 180,000 acres of table grapes.
Yeah.
And like there's like 600,000 acres of wine grapes. So think of that. So say 800,000 acres of grapes in total in California. Bill Gates owns 200,000 acres, which is still that's like owning 25% of all the grapes in California.
Yeah, you definitely disrupt markets by doing that.
And people made it seem like Bill Gates, why he's trying to buy up all his farmland is to starve the American public. I think that's all bullshit. I think there's a way bigger plan.
It probably is like that, but it's not that simplistic like that.
Yeah, that's
you know
what I
mean.
mean.
It's like rudimentary breaking it down.
It's so he can make money. It's
Yeah.
like Bill Gates isn't just thinking this shit up himself. Like he has such professional investment teams that he rolls with that are probably like saying agriculture is going to start growing 10% year over year for the next 30 years because there's only so much land in the world and the population is only going to grow.
Let me ask you this, Jackson. There's definitely a distribution thing where, like, you know, there's always going to be 1% controlling most of the means of production. But, you know, there's always a boogeyman when it comes to, like, capitalistic systems, right? Like, you know, like Vanderbilt, think about, like, all those guys back then from the Industrial Revolution, Carnegie. Like, there's always these guys who's like, okay, they have so much money, they have to be evil. So it's like Bill Gates is like the modern version of these type of guys. Like there's an archetype of like what they are.
And Elon Musk.
They all are. They all would be a part of that selected group. But you know, this is where like socialists and communists are just like, this is what's wrong with capitalism. Like it's the tragedy of the commons. It's like these big corporations are trying to profitize as much as possible at the behest of the majority of the people that are like dealing with these problems, and it's affecting them negatively. But you know, it's a problem. It's a problem that can be easily corrected with a good system of government that's engaged, that understands what's going on, instead of a communist system who's controlling everything. Like think about Putin, think about Xi Jinping. Like these guys control the entire state. And so yes, there's bad things. Like yeah, Bill Gates probably is not in the public interest. He's probably thinking about can Bill Gates make more money? How can Bill Gates look even better? How can I make my legacy look better? Like, these guys aren't thinking about us. Is what I'm saying.
Crazy. Like, when we think of shit like that, like, how much is Bill Gates worth? 100 billion?
100 billion.
It's like, how much more money can a fucking guy make?
At that point, yeah, you're just power hungry.
Yeah,
you're just power hungry
like,
at that
when
point.
we think about that, it's like, dude, give me $1 million. Like, cool. Like, I'm not saying Bill Gates, but like $1 million to me, it's like, holy shit, the guy's $100 billion.
It's like a dollar bill.
He's still trying to fucking make another 100 million. And the guy's, how old is he? 75?
Yeah, he's getting up there.
Like, dude, it's like, fuck, just smell your roses and sit down.
Yeah.
Let your fucking companies that you've built take over and just take your checks every month, dude.
All right, let's wrap this up. Let's talk about something where let's have like more of a positive note. Let's give some people like actually like some good news here, feel good about what's going on. All right, let's break it down. All right, the United States, we're in a good spot. I mean, we're the world. We're in the girl.
How about we end on the fucking LeBron's night he had last night? I think that's a great fucking.
I don't want to talk about it. Anthony Davis is such a pussy.
Yeah, but LeBron had a triple. Was it his first triple double of the season?
Yeah, you know, Braun's gonna do Braun,
Triple-double.
right? Braun's gonna do Braun. While all this stuff is going on, he's a pawn in the game.
Guy missed like 3 or 4 shots by halftime.
The guy's unbelievable. Oh my God! You know what? We didn't talk about the Jimbo Fisher thing. Do you hear about what happened to Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M?
What happened? I saw like something about Deion Sanders might be going there.
Nah.
It was it's just speculation. It was rumors.
I hope Dan Campbell goes there. He went to A&M.
But what happened to Jimbo? He just got fired? Or
no,
what?
yeah, Jimbo. They won a
happened?
game. They won last week. They won like 51-10 over Mississippi State. And like in 2021, Jimbo Fisher got a contract extension for 10 years, $95 million. And they totally, huh?
They gave him a plaque saying,
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, this guy's our guy. But then the fucking AD comes out and he's like,
fired him?
things are moving too slowly here. And so they basically gave him a payout of $75 million just to walk away. Like, we'll pay you $75 million
so
to
like,
leave.
instead of us giving you $9 million a year for the next 10 years or however many years, we're just gonna give you $75 million right now in a lump. That's crazy that they could cut a check.
That's
like
that oil money, brother. That's that oil money.
That's crazy that these colleges can cut checks like that.
But yeah, guys, the world is dangerous. The world's definitely dangerous. You gotta be engaged. You gotta be engaged. You know, don't go through the motions, guys. You know, don't hit your vape. Stop smoking your weed. Understand what's going on here, guys. Seriously, like, because there's actual real stuff that could affect our lives in the upcoming years.
Don't take things at face value.
And we didn't even get into technology, like how this is all gonna alter all the control and stuff. But you know what?
Save that for next time.
The United States, we're still the world power. We're sustainable. But I think if you can take anything from this podcast, understand that American security around world trade is the reason why we're able to be $33 trillion in debt and still people trusting our dollar is because we allow these countries to trade with one another through our military that we spend $800 billion a year on. So, how are we doing on time here?
Like about an hour.
Okay. Well, team, if you made it this far, this was a fucking heavy podcast. But if you made it this far, go fuck yourself.